Gender equality is a global commitment and a global good. It's not a tick box exercise or a nice to have. We know from the data that when we have gender equal societies and gender equal economies, our economies thrive. Our work in APEC is really squarely focused on how do we maximise the opportunities across our region to ensure that women's participation in the economy and their ability to benefit from economic activity is enhanced so that we see true gender equality across our region. And that's really exciting because we know from a lot of the data that there is enormous potential for economic growth across our region if we do unleash the power of women in our economy. And so for me, as the chair of PPWE, I'm really excited about our work program this year because we're seeing some really interesting discussions between economies about major reforms that I think are going to deliver really big impacts for women. So what we mean by gender mainstreaming really at its core is seeing economies think about the impact of policies for women and the impact of their budgets on women and thinking about those differential impacts so that when, in big investments are being made in infrastructure or new technology or new industries, we're thinking about how to make sure women are at the table, that they're being supported to participate and that those barriers that have been traditionally stopping them from participating in those new economic activities are being deliberately removed. So we're really focused on really equalising that imbalance between the domestic and care labour between men and women, and particularly the unpaid labour in the home. So what we want to see is women freed up to participate in the labour market and to really see more men take on more care. And that's not just paid care roles, which would be great to see more men in, but also the unpaid care, and to equalise that, because we know that when you have an equal care distribution between parents and in families, we see much more gender equal effects in the next generation. Often we focus a lot on the women and what we need to do to amplify women's skills, what kind of training they might need, what access, and I think all of those things are really important, but we will never achieve gender equality if we do not zoom out and look at what those structural barriers are and the systemic things that are getting in the way of women's participation. And at its core, we're talking about gender norms, attitudes, beliefs around women's roles in society and what men do and women do. And until we step back and challenge that and create a space for women to break down those barriers and stereotypes in the same way that we then allow men to break down those barriers and stereotypes, we won't fundamentally change those systemic barriers that are invisible but getting in the way of women's full and equal participation in the economy. So beyond sharing practice and coming together to talk about all of these opportunities, I think it is really important to recognise that there's some real risks here. There's risks that we leave women behind, that we don't create the space that we need to, that we don't grapple with the tricky issues and really unpack some of those societal norms and gender norms that are getting in the way of women fully participating in economies and societies. And some of that's really difficult. And I'm here as PPWE Chair to support my colleagues and the other fora across APEC to sit with some of that trickiness and discomfort and really think about how we make sure we don't leave women behind, because we are at the precipice of enormous growth across our region, a huge bounce back from COVID, and I want to see women front and centre and to see the real opportunity for growth and to see them flourish across our region.